a gold whale that had been gobbling up all of the gold that the Western exchanges had been delivering off the COMEX, that really no one knew where it came from. It was interesting. Or let me put it to you this way, not where it came from, but who was buying it. And the article was titled The Gold Whale, and it was picked up by Bloomberg and Reuters. And so it talked about the fact that central banks bought 399 tons of gold in the third quarter of this year, 2022, of around somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 billion worth of gold, which was 340% higher than in Q3 2021, almost double the previous record of 241 tons in the third quarter of 2018. It also marked the eighth consecutive quarter of net central bank purchases and lifted the total year to date to about 675 tons, which is higher than any full year ever in total, going all the way back to 1967, and the year's not even over yet. So what it's telling us is that the central banks are putting a whole new emphasis on precious metals. And the interesting thing about this was that the article said in both Bloomberg and Reuters and the World Gold Council that the 400 tons of gold was a combination of reported purchases by several central banks, like Turkey, who has been accumulating more gold in 2022, at least the first 7 months anyway, than any country in the world. Now, it's ironic, they're one of the countries that have also just said they're going to join BRICS, but also there was a substantial estimate for unreported buying. What the hell does that mean, right? Well, unreported buying evidently is not that uncommon, at least not with the official institutions like the People's Bank of China, who goes 2, 3, 4 years at a time without updating their official gold holdings. And I think it's also kind of idiotic for us to believe that an institution like the PBOC is going to be forthright and honest about their gold accumulation, whether it be to the World Gold Council, the Bank of International Settlements, or the United States. What gold is there's no counterparty risk. There's no it represents an asset that is not simultaneously someone else's liability or a government's liability or anyone. So it's freedom from the system. It's kryptonite to the Western system. And so they're not going to tell us how much they have. Before I even finish this train of thought, one of the people in this industry that I have a great deal of respect for is Alistair McLeod. Smart man and great commentator. And he surmises that China, as an example, has 38,000 metric tons of gold.
Yes.
Their own numbers say they're publishing that they have around 1,200 metric tons, which, the U.S. supposedly has about 8,300 metric tons, hasn't been audited at Fort Knox since 1956. But Alistair thinks they have as much as 38,000, almost 8 times what we have, of which 18,000 he believes is in the hands of the public and 20 in the hands of the state, where they're the largest importers, the largest producers, the largest accumulators. They don't sell an ounce. They've been mining gold even in their own country, or throughout the entire Asian continent, that is uneconomical. But they don't care. They're using the money that we give them, this trade imbalance, to buying their party favors, to do things like even mine uneconomical gold right now, but maybe where it's going, it won't look so bad. Anyways, I digress. So anyways, we go back to that article, and what it says is that they didn't know who was buying 2/3 or 3/4, well, 2/3 roughly, 280 of the 400 tons They had no idea who was buying them, but they made the assumption, both Bloomberg and Reuters made the assumption that it was Saudi Arabia, China, Russia, and India. Now, where have we heard those names before?
Right.
Oh, yeah. The BRICS. Saudi Arabia just said they're joining BRICS. They've given their formal commitment to it as validated by the president of South Africa. So it's happening. And all of this gold, they surmised that these were the countries that bought it. Well, just yesterday, we see in an article that was published on Zero Hedge that China has confirmed that they are indeed one of these mystery buyers, and whereby they have increased their amount of gold purchases just in the month of November by 35 or 38 or whatever the number was, metric tons. So, and again, I believe that they're probably buying much more than that. But they confirmed that this was their first purchase in 3 years. Now, I don't believe that at all.
No.
I think that China and other countries are in a hurry to reduce their dependence on the dollar, as the article states. But I also believe that it's silly for us to think that the Chinese state banks and other enterprises are this is the first purchase they've made in 3 years. I think that's insane.
Right.
And it's just China's way of not being forthright about it. But it is part and parcel with what we're seeing in massive accumulation of gold by the world's central banks, and in particular, those banks that are either part of the Belt Road Initiative and the BRICS nations, or have applied to or have expressed interest in joining the BRICS nations. And that is because we were told by the Russian finance minister a few weeks ago that indeed this would be a new currency, the BRICS currency that will be issued, that will be a reserve currency to challenge the dollar. It will be a basket of local currencies, as they call it, meaning those entities that are part of the BRICS nations, and will be pegged to commodities. And so when we talk about the massive selling of bonds by countries like China and Russia and Saudi Arabia, all these countries are selling bonds. China sold about 150 billion worth over the last 8 months, every single month. They're selling because the weaponizing of the dollar, the way that we did it, kicking Russia out of SWIFT, has incentivized not only things like the CIPS system, the cross interbank payment system, which usurps SWIFT, or the M-Bridge, which allows for cross-border trading of central bank digital currencies, or massive acquisition of gold and selling of dollars to not be reliant upon the US dollar, like little old Ghana, tiny little emerging nation in Africa, who just said we're done buying oil with dollars. Because what has happened as the dollar has gotten so strong, and all of these countries not only have to buy oil in dollars, but their debt is in dollars, they have to sell their local currency, which exacerbates the inflation and the decreasing value of their local currency in pursuit of the ever higher dollar. But they have to buy that dollar to buy oil and to pay off their debt. So they sell their currency, which increases inflation, drops the value of their currency. They have to buy the high price dollar to buy oil. It's a vicious loop. So Ghana says, we're done. We're going to tell all the gold producers in the country that they have to give 20% or sell 20% to the government so we can buy oil. Right. So, and not use the dollar. But this is a trend that we are seeing with gold, with commodities, moving away from the dollar, and this massive coalition, this grouping of countries that are standing up against the West. And the way that it works